being loyal to the government. They maybe worked about 20, 30 years ago, but nowadays you go to work really hard, you put in your effort, you're dedicated, but at the same time you'd expect to be rewarded. But a lot of Australians are not experiencing that.
I feel when there's inflation, there's also rise in crime.
Oh, 100%.
A man and a woman have been found.
Gangland assassin in Sydney.
A 4-day crime spree at jewellery store.
Sydney police have smashed $1 billion organised crime network.
How do you track your spending?
When I bought something using cash and stuff, so I just have a little notebook, writing it down, and then having no judgment on yourself.
I've never seen an increase in terms of a $50, a $70, an $80 increase in rent ever, as far as I've lived for the last 5 to 6 years. Clothes and all of that have stayed at a steady rate of increase, but in terms of the groceries, that's really skyrocketed.
Going into these supermarkets, you're not even looking at the product, you're looking at the price tag.
Welcome to another episode of Australia Unfiltered, where we have candid and unfiltered conversations with people who live in Australia. This series is powered by Anchor Cookiko and Dropout Chaiwala. And we would like to give our special thanks to Aussies Group for this amazing podcast space. So let's dive into today's topic. Today we will be talking about cost of living in Australia. To speak about this topic, we have Amy and Shimark. These two people both have experienced the changing cost living in Australia through the years, is what I'd say. Amy is a lawyer, entrepreneur, leadership and well-being advocate with a passion to help people achieve holistic success and be better stewards of their finances. She is also the founder of the Growing Adults Project, a new upcoming community, and the Live Life Well movement that exists to help people burn bright, not out. Shimark is an engineer who is in business development, mainly in software. He is also the host of another podcast, which is called Step One. Guys, do follow. Where is it?
It's on YouTube and Spotify.
Do follow it. I've heard some of it. It is amazing. He is passionate about markets and how revenue is generated for organizations. Thank you, Amy and Shimark, for coming in. You have come in from Adelaide, not especially for our podcast, but you came in for something else and it just really matched. Yep. And you came from really far. Even though you're from Melbourne, I'd say you came from really far.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys, for coming to Australia Unfiltered.
Thanks for having us. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Let's dive directly into the topic of, cost of living in Australia. The first thing and the most cliche thing to ask, how do you think the cost of living has changed in the last 5 years? Who wants to go first?
I go,
Yeah.
That's a very good question. How has the cost of living changed in the last 5 years? It's definitely increased according to me. I mean, obviously everyone feels that.
Yeah.
From a level of going to groceries to real estate, even to the point of going to, renting.
Oh, yes, 100%.
100% renting as well. So I think it's the thing is that it's essentially trying, a lot of prices increase, trying to keep up with inflation. Housing prices are really high. So I wouldn't, like, a lot of people think, oh, is the situation really bad? I'd say right now, from what I've looked at, it is like, you feel it. You feel it going to a supermarket. You feel it going out with your friends as well, going to restaurants. And it's definitely on the incline, I think. Yeah.
I agree. And just to add on to that point before we get to Amy, is that the cost of living has increased, but I don't think salaries have increased.
Correct.
That's true.
Yeah. So
That's
it's
true.
like cost of living should increase. Obviously, years are going by and things are going fine. But if your salary doesn't increase, it's like, this is like people used to buy houses like 20, 30 years ago, or even more than that for like 3,000. Or, I've seen those really old clips of like on Channel 9 or 7, they're buying houses for 3,000 and now 3,000 is your rent.
Yeah.
And
for a month?
Yeah, for a month. It is so bad. What are your thoughts, Amy?
Oh, similar to what you guys have already shared. Like, I think it's definitely increased because I've lived in Australia all my life, despite being Vietnamese, Chinese. It's increased heaps. Like, even petrol, like if you've got a car as well. Like, I think I remember even like 10 years ago, it was like less than $1. And then now it's like, it's closer to $2, like those kind of things. So I think it's definitely changed. And you're right, like it's the whole salary hasn't increased to match.
Yeah, true.
I just want to add on that salary bit as well. I saw a really interesting stat today as well, that inflation has reached out to 4% in terms of increasing, but the salary is still at a 2%, the wage increase over the last 5 years. So even the wages are not keeping up with inflation. And then people kind of A lot of bigger corporations, a lot of governments say, oh, you need to work hard, you need to be dedicated to a role and stuff like that. But a lot of Australians, and for me being here for the past 8 to 9 years, have discovered that a lot of people have even gone up to the Prime Minister and have complained that being loyal to the government, being loyal to an organization for a longer time maybe worked about 20, 30 years ago, but nowadays it may not reap the same benefits because like you go to work, you work really hard, you put in your effort, you're dedicated, but at the same time you would expect to be rewarded the same way to live a decently comfortable life. But a lot of Australians are not experiencing that. Just wanted to add,
yeah, no, that is happening. I agree. Like I don't know, it's also different times are changing. After COVID, life has changed. People don't want to be at one like they want a different kind of culture, which if it does, before organizations used to choose people, but now people are choosing organizations.
100%.
But also, yet there is so much redundancies. With redundancies, I feel when there's inflation, there's also rise in crime.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Because people don't have enough, so they're trying to like find other ways to do it, and like petty theft or other things. I think mental health also is a huge challenge.
True.
Prices are increasing and people are having conflict around money
as
well at home. So there's a lot of side issues that arise with the increase.
You mentioned a great point about crime as well, like because of a lot of things pour down from the US. So like example, because if Ukraine, Russia with all that kind of stuff, if Russia or Ukraine doesn't supply petrol, prices increase in Australia because they're one of the largest petrol suppliers, which also falls down to the UK and everything. In the UK especially, like a lot of people, even my friends in the UK, and he's like, the situation's really bad with, okay, in Australia, it's about, say, 3 to 4% inflation. There, it's 6 to 8%.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And it's directly proportional number of stabbings that are in the, because people would love to rob something from you. And then, like they can't afford basic necessities and turns good humans bad.
Yeah.
It turns good humans bad.
Like, I feel it is all situational. Like, bad people is situational. Like, I'm not for
100%,
bad people, but it is
100%.
situational. Some people are bad, but I feel so many, like, robberies and thefts, it happens because of situational things. And if the inflation keeps on increasing and redundancies keep on happening, the crime rate, I feel, would increase in Australia.
Also in terms of the homelessness rate, like in Queensland, and Anna Palaszczuk, she created a lot of homes for people who are homeless, which is really a great initiative, about 1,000 homes. However, if you see in Australia in the last few years, and as I'm living here, when I came initially in 2015 as compared to now, and I came to Melbourne way back in 2016, the homelessness rate has increased so rapidly. They say it's almost 200%. As compared to what it was 2 years ago. Mortgages, a lot of both parents have to work to pay for a mortgage. And there's another thing about cost of working, which I think we can speak further as a discussion, but we'll touch on that.
I'm so sure you have something to add on mortgages. You've had experience with it.
Yes, well, I do work in property and commercial law, and so there is like definitely people coming in. Funnily enough, there's actually a lot of the older generation Australians just across the board that are looking to lend money to their children to try to get into the property market. So the mum and dad bank is definitely very much alive, but that's only, of course, if you have the money. In terms of mortgages as a whole, like that's definitely increased. Like we've got larger mortgages nowadays.
100%.
And you're talking about costs of houses. I think the stats were something around maybe like in the 1980s, a mortgage or a house was like 78,000. But then people actually, that's like the cost of someone's HECS debt or like someone's like uni course right now, not for a house. So I think, like you said, the way of thinking in the 90s or, even early 2000s isn't the same kind of thinking we can bring into 2024. And so with mortgages as well, like, yes, you've got the increase, like every monthly costs then is increasing. And then if you're a landlord, then you're wanting to pass that on to your renters and tenants. So there's this, vicious cycle of like, well, how do we actually solve this problem? Like, and how are we actually going to move forward? Which I'm sure we'll talk about more.
True. Let's go from one topic to another because there's so many topics to talk about. But as we're on this topic, let's talk about housing and, rental cost. I know a lot of people have messaged on Humans of Australia that, hey, how's it, Is it worth? Can you pay your costs or things like that? And I also have Australian friends who have left Australia and gone to other places in Europe, which is more feasible. Or even move to Asia. I know so many Australians moving to India and Asian countries. But oh my God, Bali. I went to Bali. I met more Australians in Bali than I've met Australians in Australia. That was so weird. But it is a better cost of living, a better standard of life. So I don't blame them. I know Australians are leaving Australia to have a better standard of living with the cost that they can earn. And people who are coming to Australia, they're like questioning, should we come to Australia? Is it a thing? So let's break it down and let's talk about housing and rental. What are your thoughts on housing and rental?
Yeah. Oh, I'm happy to start.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, like running the numbers, like when you think about it, if you're looking at a particular property, say in Glen Waverley, which is quite expensive in Melbourne. So, you know, if comparing the prices of actually buying and then having a mortgage, there's all these like other costs involved, like in terms of, you know, the utilities and all the rest, and all the hidden costs that people don't think about when they buy a property. And then, but if you're renting, like, the landlord is actually dealing with a lot of these things. So it's kind of like this, there's pros and cons of either side. But often people don't think about the fact that how long is it going to take them to pay off this mortgage? And a lot of people are dying without actually having cleared their debts when it comes to their mortgages.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, there's a lot of people.
Are you a house owner?
I am a house owner. I'm also a landlord, so we do have an investment property as well. So, you know, we ran the numbers and we're like, actually, it might actually make more sense if we were to say rent out our existing primary place of residence and then actually rent somewhere else. Because I think what people, again, like what my parents did, like they just bought in a place that was affordable at the time. Whereas nowadays people want to live where they're working or live where their family is, and often it's not affordable. So then they're like, how do I actually live close to my family? Probably renting. But then it's obviously it's the hard part because you're not then in control of, you know, if the landlord wants to do something with the property, if they want to move back in. So there's always risks involved, I guess, on either side. But renting could actually be like rent vesting, I think, is the other thing that I think we were talking about at some point. So people like buying a property, but then actually not living in it, and
investing in another property,
or they live somewhere. So buy somewhere cheap. Say regional Victoria, which is actually where our investment property is, but we're not living there. But then it's actually something that someone else can live in, hopefully long-term tenants, that kind of thing.
I have a question on that before I ask you. I've heard that, you know, once you buy a house and, you know, for the rent vesting. So for that, but the rent that you get these days is not enough to match it. You have to put money from your pocket. Is that true or no? Or it depends on location and things. So that, how does that work?
Yeah, I think it does depend on location. I think we got to a point when interest rates went up, when we were like no longer negative gearing, but it was like positive gearing. So basically like you're having to take more money out of your pocket to pay to cover your mortgage. And so obviously like you do have some tax benefits, like it reduces your overall taxable income. But then, you just gotta make sure that you balance it out and keep looking at your numbers. Like it's not just I bought this and then leave it to go. It's not really a true form of passive income yet, because you still gotta, you got to maintain it. You got to maintain the property. And so I think. Do
you get income out of it? Because all of it goes in the mortgage, right?
Yeah, it's just basically paying the mortgage that you've already got on the property. So I think it takes a while. I think often people think like, property is the best way to invest. But I would disagree. Some people might think otherwise out there, but at the moment, it's probably not something I would recommend, and not something that I would actually go and do the next investment property.
Why do you say so?
I think because you're going to go into further debt. And I think that's the main thing, because with investing in property, it's about leveraging. So it's like using, say, the equity in one property to then buy the next.
Yes, exactly.
And then keep going. So if you're comfortable with a lot of debt, then maybe that could be an option. It's just probably not something that I'm really thinking about at the moment. But yeah, open to your thoughts on it as well.
Yeah,
are you a house owner or a renter?
No, I'm a renter. Obviously, like from her wealth of knowledge, I can probably not add much. But from what I've experienced is that like as I've rented houses as well, I've never seen an increase in terms of a $50, a $70, an $80 increase in rent ever as far as I've lived for the last 5 to 6 years. But this time when we signed a new lease, the rent was bumped up $70 to $80, which is significant because the interest rates are increasing. The owner has to match, and they increase that. A lot of the couples as well, as I was speaking to some of the couples who I know in Adelaide, they've mentioned that while they're working full time and the mortgages, they're paying their mortgages, they're essentially having a noose around their neck where they can't stop working. And they're even talking about the cost of working once they have a kid, because they're paying $400 in like, I don't know, what do you call the childcare, essentially. So they're paying a lot in childcare while they're working. So they're saying, I'm just making a few $100 a week while I'm spending. So is it worth for me going to work or spending time with my kids? And a lot of the, what that, falls down into is that once the housing prices, so even commercial properties, if you see commercial properties, the commercial property rents are high. Obviously, restaurants, bars, retail stores have to increase their prices to make a margin. So it just flows down from one to the other to the other. And that is obviously baby boomers when, way back in the 1990s, could afford a property for like 50 to 60K, but now it's increased 400%, which is unrealistic for a lot of the people to save up a deposit. Even a lot of my friends have said that they spend almost their whole life saving for a deposit. Even a friend of mine who was an Australian, born in Australia, doesn't pay rent. He lives with his parents. He saved up a deposit for a property, went out, and they bid 100K over the property and still could not get the property because someone bid 200K over the price.
Oh my God.
And he's not paid rent his whole life because he lived with his parents. Imagine the people paying rent. In terms of saving. A lot of the youth have, kind of given up on saving as well. Because first of all, it's mammoth numbers in terms of deposits. So in Queensland, when I was there, the government I don't know if it's in Victoria, but they started giving first home buyers grants.
There are first
home buyers grants.
But it's like the property needs to be under 600,000. And they cut off the stamp duty and all of those costs are cut off. That is a lot of money. So they do cut it off. But yet in 600,000, the problem is you don't get a good house. You get these old houses which you need to repair. So you are putting in so much money.
100%.
But you get a land in your name and a property in your name. So and
even in Strathfield, I believe that's in New South Wales, Strathfield in New South Wales. There was a big news about a property that was 2 million 2 years ago. I think you heard of that, and it went for 8 million. So I mean, like the essentially from when you're looking at that, there's a whole horde of people under the tree. I'm not saying it's up versus down, but what I'm trying to say is that there's a whole horde of people under the tree who are fighting for scraps, whereas the ownership, people who own them, obviously just make money out of nowhere. It depends on, obviously, as you said, negative gearing, positive gearing, which property you invest in, whether you want to invest in something that produces, negative gearing. A lot of people, I know a lot of people, the house I'm renting in is owned by an Indian gentleman. He owns 3 investment properties, but he also rents himself. So it makes sense. And you don't want to get into that whole of a mortgage because, you know what I mean? I mean, so that's just my thoughts, and I think it's a whole. We can talk about this for hours.
It's on its own, right?
But I believe I remember when I first spoke to you as well, and you said when you first came in, your rent was really low. Like compared to now, it's really changed. What was your rent when you first came in?
So when I came in, so a 2-bedroom apartment was around.
Which location is this?
So this is in Queensland. Obviously, you can't compare Queensland and Adelaide, but if you do compare it, it was about around the $300 to $320 mark for a 2-bedroom property. Really reasonable. We had 3 friends living, each paid $100. But now, if you go to realestate.com and you try to search for a 2-bedroom property under $550, you probably wouldn't find it in Adelaide unless you're willing to live 1.5 hours away, which is unrealistic. Because what's funny is I came to Adelaide in 2023. I think I told you as well. Property 2-bedroom apartments was still $350 in 2023. And now it's $500, which is
wow.
$500 is yet cheap because I live in a 2-bedroom apartment and it's nearly $700. But that's because I live close to the city. I have friends who live further away, like an hour from the city. That is cheaper. Like 40 minutes to an hour. Like a drive is what I'm talking about. So that is around 400 to 500 mark. But I don't want to live so far from the city.
Especially if you're young, you want to kind of be in around the area.
Exactly.
And also,
Yeah.
like, it makes sense that the interest rates are increasing because they want to control inflation. You got to understand that. But the impact is there. We feel the impact regardless of the reasons as to why the interest rates increasing. Yeah.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, he recently bought a property in, what's the area? I think around Werribee, darn it. And then we were, I don't know how this conversation came, but someone told me that, that area, he bought it somewhere around 600,000 to 700,000, somewhere between that range. So he got the first home buyer property. But he said that people 5 years, he or someone, that 5 years ago, people who bought that properties are there. It was like half the price that was there. And people could afford it. Like people at that point in time, they bought 2-3 houses because they could afford it and that was a possibility. But right now, buying that one house, even he stays out there, but he stays with friends out there who pay him rent, which really helps him to pay the mortgage. And I think that would be really helpful. That's a very helpful scenario. But paying it by yourself and living by yourself, I think that is not possible.
Not possible with the current wages, especially. Unless you're in the top 1% income earners, which 99% of people are not. So
true.
It's majorly hard for a lot of the people to do so. And
it is really hard. But also for newcomers who come to Australia, I would say like student housings are really expensive. They're so expensive, like Scape and things like that.
Oh my god!
They're like, I never stayed in Scape or anything.
Me neither. Never stayed in student accommodations.
Yeah.
Never.
I wish I stayed, like not in Scape, but Uni Lodge or anything like that. But Scape is so expensive. They charge at minimum, I'd say, for a one bit, like a really small one, I'd say 1,500 to 2,000. Maybe including bills and everything.
Per month?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's a lot. And
That's
I
a
think
lot
you'll
for
be
students.
sharing as well, right? You still be sharing the common spaces.
Yeah. Common spaces you might be sharing.
My
I
God.
think so. It's around that mark. And don't take my word. Don't quote my word. Please don't quote it.
No,
But I
that's
think,
about the ballpark,
but that is about the ballpark. Like Scape and all these things are really expensive. So then students are like, can you afford it? And then can you live out there? And I'm like,
You have to be working.
Yeah, you have to be working.
You have to be
While you're
working.
Or
studying.
you have to be from very privileged family.
Affluent
Yes.
family,
Yeah, you need to be from a privileged family. And it's nice to stay in student accommodation. I wouldn't say it's not nice, but there are cheaper alternatives is what I'd say.
You know what's so funny? I was walking around the city and I saw 3 to 4 Scape buildings in a row.
Yes. Oh
in
my
a
God.
row, and they're all
It
full.
wasn't there when I came, and I came in 2019. There was not a single Scape building, just
Really?
one opposite, not in the city, just one opposite the Spot building, University of Melbourne Spot building, just one out there, but none out in the city. And they're
That's
all
insane.
made like in very recent years, in the past 5-6 years.
That's crazy.
So they're minting money.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Imagine buying a land in the city and building a huge ass building on it. I think, wow, that's very smart.
You need a lot of money to be able to do that. I think.
These are the
In
bigger
millions.
corporations.
Corporations. I think.
Yeah.
Maybe a little insight onto Scape as well, if that helps. I mean, like, I had a friend who lives in Scape, and they have an amazing tactic to make sure the student stays. They say, you can book the place. I mean, a lot of students coming here are not aware, like, student accommodation, sure, let's go there. And once they get in, they're like, all right, when your contract is ending, you can book it for free. Just we'll hold your place for free. Just say it now. So they book it now, and then most likely students are going to stay once they pre-book the place, and that's how they retain students for years.
Oh.
Okay.
That's crazy.
And they also have like yearly contracts. Like if you sign yearly, it's cheaper.
Oh, of course.
And you can't break it. If you break it, you have to pay like a huge fine. It's like renting a space.
Yeah.
But then you make friends. And as a student, I think it's all fine. But it is expensive. You do have to work. You can't afford it.
No.
Like just by the go. But also I feel then students miss out being students because they end up working to pay all of these things. So it's a whole cycle that we talk about. And then next thing, let's go on to like housing. That reminds me of utilities. Utilities have increased so much. Like just the basic Wi-Fi. My Wi-Fi has increased so much. It's it's not cheap. I pay around so they start you off really well, okay? They have this tactic, this marketing tactic. Like, for the first 6 months. First 6 months it's just gonna be $75 or $65. They like ramp it down and they'll be like this thing. And then suddenly after 6 months you get a bill which is $95 and you're like, shit, where did this happen from? So it's just insane. And then some buildings also have this thing where you can only take a particular utility, or some areas have these things. That particular utilities only you can connect with, and you're like, damn, I'm stuck.
It's like a monopoly there.
It is a monopoly. What about you? What about you, Amy? Have you seen a difference?
Yeah, I think it's definitely increased. I think one of the tactics, or to try to combat that, would be to shop around, obviously. But like you said, you can't if you're in a specific spot.
Yeah.
I think what I'm noticing, and what we've seen a lot of our friends who are house owners or have that capacity, switching to like solar energy to try to like putting on solar panels or something like that. Some other ways to like combat this particular increase, but then electricity has also gone up as well. So,
but putting solar panels is not cheap, right?
It's also not cheap. Yeah. So that is also a dent in your pocket.
Yeah.
I think there's like $10,000 or something like that.
It is.
But it's obviously it's supposed to last for a longer period of time. And like for some people I know who put in solar panels, it has dramatically like decreased their energy usage or how much they're paying for energy. So yeah, I do know, and this is kind of sidetracked to what you said in Europe as well. Like when we were there, I think it was just last year, there were hotels in Italy that were like, you cannot turn on like the aircon because the energy consumption cost was actually too much. So there were certain hotels that like you can't actually use the aircon, and this is like really hot like weather as well. So yeah, so it's just I think every part of the world is feeling it at some point.
I feel it's the worst. I was talking to a friend of mine back in India. She works at Amazon, and she was saying like she's trying to switch jobs because she's experienced a very bad culture. But she thinks that it's worse recession than the 2008 recession. Like it's not just US or anywhere, but it's everywhere around the world. And she has education from one of the highest institutions in India, and people just hear that name and give jobs. But this time she's also struggling.
Oh yes, I've heard of that. Yes.
But she's also struggling. So then it's like a horrible recession. I thought Australia is the only place, but it's just everywhere. I feel.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think so. I think you're going to feel it across all countries, no matter what demographic as well. So it's not just, people who are more economically challenged, but even like going up,
everyone is experiencing it. But I just feel the rich are becoming richer. They are not experiencing it.
100%.
I don't see them struggling. Where's the struggle? Maybe they are, but just like, oh my God, 1 million less. Just kidding. Okay, anyway, getting back to utilities, you were talking about the solar panel thing, which is a possibility, but as a renter, it's not a possibility. You just have to pay the increase. Like I know my hot water bills have increased, my electricity bill has increased. Like I got a notice recently that your bill is going to increase by $10 because some reason. And I'm like, okay, fine, thanks. I can't be like no. I have to accept it. That does happen. Have you experienced?
Yeah, no, it's I definitely felt it. It's what's really interesting from the utilities perspective. Obviously, gas and electricity are very essential, and you have to get them. But internet is a very interesting bill that I feel like people should just be given internet. But it's for some reason like companies charge $80-90, and what we did in our house is we decided let's just upgrade our mobile plan by $10, so we can get 300 gigs from whatever company. I don't want to name, but whatever company. We can use a hotspot. We don't need to pay extra for internet. So we started trying to work those hacks out. Like, don't pay $89 for specific internet. We just use a hotspot and we get 300-400 gigs.
But does it work that well? Is the connectivity good with your setup? So my partner, he has a whole huge setup, like a PC setup. He needs really good internet and all those things for that. And
it depends on where you are. Like if you're we're in the city, so it works really well. So with Optus, Telstra, it works well. The further out you go, a lot of the companies drop out, and Telstra works really well. For me, so far, it's been okay. So far, I've been working from home and all that. Obviously, it depends on your usage as well. Nothing you mentioned about solar panels. And I agree. Like, so about, say, a few months ago, people saved heaps on solar. Almost little to no electricity. However, what's happened now, I think in terms of the tariffs, the tariffs from solar panels actually decreased. So people are actually making less savings out of solar panels as well.
Why? Sorry, I don't know why. I don't know the reason. Why they're making less money on solar panels?
That's a very good, because for example, if your tariffs are higher, you actually kind of save.
What is tariff, sorry?
It's like you can get a return, like when you, I think you generate energy into the grid. Is that right?
So
is that what you mean?
Essentially, you have a higher percentage of energy you can generate back to the grid. So example, so you're paying $80 in current or whatever. So the government decides how much of that they can, if you save via solar, can be returned back to the grid, so they reduce your bill.
Okay.
Right? So the rate at which the government kind of allows you to save has also decreased further. So you're kind of saving little to less with solar in the last few months. It's the recent news, like 5-6 months. So that has also been like a weird coincidence, because it's like, all right, you're making solar panels really hard, but you're also increasing utility bills. Energy and gas will increase, and I believe so because Australia is finding it hard to produce its own energy. It has to get it from all countries. And there's a lot of geopolitical affairs that influence this. Like, now some of the suppliers, I can go political, but I don't want to go fully political. There's some big players like Iran, you got Saudi and all that, who can produce oil for cheap. But then there are certain countries that don't want to work with these countries, and they want to buy gas at a higher rate. Like immediately, as soon as Russia-Ukraine issue happened, petrol prices rised up in Australia. Same energy and gas. So it's something that we might just have to, I guess, deal with. Is my conclusion from this, I think.
Yeah, true. You know, when you said petrol prices, I remember this and I forgot it. Amy, you had also said this, that petrol was less than $1 before, 10 years ago. I don't understand the price of petrol is different at different locations, even in the city, 100%. And even as you keep on going further away, it gets cheaper, and you're like, why is this like, what do you know why does that happen?
That's a very good question, actually. Do you
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what that, like, the theory is behind it, beyond the fact that when you're further out, I guess it takes you longer to get into the city, so maybe it's cost less. I don't know. I'm actually not sure.
I've heard a theory on this, and don't quote me on this, but I've heard a lot of friends say this, that it depends on the cost of supply to that petrol station as well. Like, for an example, if you're, even in Adelaide, we have OTRs. You probably never heard of OTRs? No. It's only Adelaide thing for some reason. We don't have 7-Elevens, we have OTRs. So you have many OTRs, right? And you go one OTR, it's $1.50. You go another OTR, it's $2. And you go, I think it depends on the supply location, like how far does it take to supply the petrol, and the logistical costs just add on, because transport and logistics prices have even increased. Because before, Australia used to get all of their transport, everything from China. But now there's also these tensions where they can't manufacture things from China, so transport logistics increases, which then goes on to petrol prices. So I think that is my theory. I could be wrong, I could be right.
I don't know. I've seen in the city itself, like in and around the city, same location from like the midpoint, different prices. And you're like, shit, where do I keep on tracking where the cheapest is, and do I fill my petrol from there?
Also that, but
petrol spy, right?
Even the 7-Eleven app, I think so. I'm not sure if you can even lock the price somewhere.
Yes. No, I do that. Yeah, we can do that in here.
Oh, sorry.
And in Sydney.
Yes. You can lock the price somewhere, and then you can actually book it, and
I love that.
And then you can pay that much. But then a lot of people don't know about it. How do you do it? Can you tell people?
Oh, well, the 7-Eleven app. Well, you just download the app and then make sure your location is on. And then, I guess when you're going around, you can just check to see if the price is lowest, whichever 7-Eleven. If you go past the 7-Eleven, you're like, oh, that's a really cheap price. Then if you haven't locked it in, then you just tap it, lock. And then
how long can you lock it?
7 days, I think.
7
days to use it.
So bad.
Yeah.
It's a long time.
Good. Yeah. And if you're not using your car that much, like, you could really just do one pump. Like, for me, because I work currently close to home. So I only probably pump my car maybe once a fortnight. And you obviously then have to check, make sure you're relocking. If you're not using it. But so that's definitely a good hack.
Yeah, that's a hack to save minimal. I think these small savings lead to the big savings, and you have to do it. Now coming on to groceries, and what I've heard is a lot more people, and I've seen it on Instagram, like people talking about it, is that started not the right word, but robbing stuff, like pickpocketing from Coles and Woolies.
Oh, that's 100%.
A lot more. And it has increased because the things that you could afford before were cheaper. Now they're so expensive, so people pickpocket it. They're like, I've anyway paid for the rest of the groceries, I'm just pickpocketing the expensive stuff. I don't support them, but I wouldn't say they're wrong.
No, that's true. I'll just kind of start on that. So in terms of groceries, what's so funny is that groceries are, so you got two types of purchase, right? You got your essentials, you got your non-essentials. You got your bags, your shoes, and everything that probably could live with a lesser one, but you got your groceries which you need to eat and live, right?
Yeah.
What's funny is if you notice the trends in Australia, like a lot of the essential prices have actually increased at a higher rate than a lot of the non-essentials.
Yeah.
Which is really funny. Like a lot of the consuming thing, like your clothes and all of that, have stayed at a steady rate of increase. But in terms of the groceries, that's really skyrocketed. Obviously, there's conglomerates like Coles and Woolies that kind of like mark up these prices really high, which is why a lot of the Woolies and the Woolies CEO went to court and all that kind of stuff. What's so funny is when we went to Coles, like me and my friends and my partners and all that, we were thinking twice before ordering chips at one point. We were like, should we really get chips?
Yeah.
Because we got meat, we got this one. Let's get chips for this time. And it's come to that stage where people are thinking of skipping these little joys in life. Because groceries, if you like it or not, is a joy in life. It's like you go and you're like, oh, I really want to go and buy that little chocolate that I want. Oh, wait, it's twice the price. Okay, I'm not earning that much, I don't know, and then you stop. And that returns back to mental health and all that kind of stuff. Now, a lot of the big conglomerates also complaining about rising costs of, raw materials, transport, which makes sense. That's fair. However, there's a lot of these stores like Coles and Woolies and all that also are not treating their suppliers really well. They're actually being very stingy with their suppliers, but also with the consumers. So it makes sense if the supply cost is really high, but somehow the supply cost isn't that high. However, at the same time, we really underestimated the amount of goods coming out of Ukraine. Ukraine is one of the largest suppliers of wheat and meat as well from Europe. So and even countries in Europe really require a lot of the wheat and grains that are grown in Ukraine. And the moment that happened, their prices did increase. The loaf of bread in 2015 was, I could buy a loaf of bread for $1, as you mentioned before. $1. Now I can't even buy one for less than $4 to $5. I could afford, obviously that even trickles down to restaurants. I could afford a kebab for $9 in 2015 as a student. And I had a budget of $20. I can eat 2 kebabs a day and I'm fine. Now, if I can't even afford a kebab for $1, you can't find anything. I mean, you can if you really look. So I think it's just you don't know what game is being played here.
True.
You don't know. Maybe you might know a bit better. So I'll let you kind of touch on that. But this is from more of a consumer perspective.
Before we get to just to add on what you said, Coles and Woolies, they have their own products as well, right? But they hide it down somewhere beneath where you can't even find it because those are cheaper compared to the rest of it. And you're like, where is it? And so many times it's out of stock and things like that. I don't know why they do that. It's so stupid. But anyway, what are your thoughts on it? Do you want us to add on?
Just quickly one thing. I don't want to disclose the name. I was working with one of the suppliers because we have a company that supplies, and they said that ever since they started going into some of the giants, like in the retail shop, a lot of the smaller health food shops stopped working with them because of ethical reasons, because of a branding name and stuff. So that impact is not only felt by us, but also with other smaller businesses that are kind of finding it hard to fight. So, I just want to add on that.
No, that's all right. And I guess brands wanting to go into the big stores, they think it's going to be, their big ticket in, but then it's not because then they're competing. There's so many competition, there's so much competition on the shelf space. And then, like you said, there's the home brands or the Woolies have their own brands. Coles has their own brands, which is often a few dollars cheaper than all these other brands. So I have found, I think for the longest time, maybe early days, I don't know, 20 years ago in Australia, you have your certain brands that you go to. But now you're just but I have to pay so much extra. So I might as well go with the home brand, which may not be as good quality, but you're just doing it because of the financial side of things. You're always it's sad because sometimes you're going into these supermarkets and you're not even looking at the product, you're looking at the price tag.
True, 100%.
Right?
Exactly.
And there's the yellow ticket or whatever in Coles, I think, which is
what? There's a scam. The yellow ticket is a scam. I have so many times, it says the discounted price, I've removed it, it's the same price below. And I'm
oh, really?
Yes, so many times that happens. I always remove it or push it around to just check if they're actually that price or what's the case.
And it's good as well to check what it is, say per kilo or something
I do that.
because I think that sometimes it has a yellow sticker here per kilo, but then some other thing that's just normal price, but it's actually cheaper.
Yes, true.
So you got to be a bit savvy.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that's also good is perhaps instead of going to the big supermarkets, is actually going to the smaller, say, greengrocers or something like that.
Yeah, that's a very good
And
alternative.
sometimes like the food there's actually better quality, and you are supporting small business, and sometimes it's cheaper too because like they don't have to think about the margins that they're going to give.
Commissions they give away.
Yeah, exactly. So a
True.
few things there.
I agree. And I'd say Aldi for the win for me. I said this before as well.
100%.
Aldi is cheaper. I feel it is better quality for some reason. I feel it, but not in everything. Like groceries, yes. And I'd say meat, yes. But like other brands, when they make dupes of it, those are really nice. But other stuff, I'm not sure. But I always buy it. I'm like, because, you look at the price tag and you don't look at the product anymore. And when you said that, I just thought of it. It's so difficult to be loyal to a brand.
Oh, that's so true. That's so
It's
true.
so hard
Yeah.
now.
You
Because the
can't.
brands are not loyal to you sometimes.
Yeah.
It's a two.
To be honest, brands have a particular cost that they create, but they have to pay the shelf cost, and then that cost changes. And each brand's cost is different in each Woolies and Coles, which is bad. But I feel at Aldi that's not the case. Aldi is very like, it's a minimal cost change. And as I told you guys this before as well. So there's this yogurt brand, which is like the fancy one. I can't remember their name, but it's the yogurt thing. And then they have their, the syrup or whatever, the jam or things. And you can see that it's really fancy. And you find that in Woolies and Coles, one of the places. And they also, same thing, just under a different brand name, is in Aldi. But it's cheaper.
Yeah.
So then you're like, okay, why don't I just buy that in Aldi? It's the same literal brand. And if they can sell it for cheaper in Aldi, why can't they sell it for cheaper in Woolies and Coles?
That's very true.
It's the margins, I think.
It's the margins.
Yeah. And just one shout out, because you are shouting out like Aldi. I think Costco as well.
Oof.
I was like, I totally forgot about that.
Yeah.
So if you have a friend who has the Costco membership, or you could share it,
Yeah.
that's a great way to just buy in bulk and then like distribute out.
Yeah.
That's also another great
But
way
then
to
that's
save.
what the problem that I've had with Costco is you have to buy in bulk, and
You
it's
do have
too
to
much
buy.
bulk, and I don't
Too
have
much
space. Unless you're sharing it with friends
Yeah.
or family, then it's fine. But it's too much. Like, oh, you can't buy 1 kg of potatoes. You have to buy 5 kgs of potatoes. What am I going to do? 5 kgs of
Probably
potatoes.
won't cook all the potatoes for like months,
Be
and
eating
you'll find them.
potatoes every day.
Unless you have like a large family, that probably makes sense.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is cheaper. I think it's
Yeah.
good for like families and restaurants
Yeah.
and friends who can divide it
Friends,
up.
yeah.
So it is really nice. But otherwise, I don't know how to buy it as an individual or just with my partner. I don't have that much space in my house. Houses in Australia don't have enough space.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
Another alternative also could be like, as you mentioned, like some of the Indian grocery stores, you'd be surprising that they're actually pretty cheap. Like some of them in Adelaide as well, they have decently low prices. So if you go to some of these, as I said, markets, or I sometimes go to the local grocers to get veggies and some masalas and all that are in Woolies and Aldi, like, you could get a decent price, like 100%. You should try that, especially if you're a student.
Yeah.
Another thing I also heard, like in terms of grocery pricing, is I went to a cafe in Adelaide. I was working in the city. I was chatting with this mom, owned a cafe, and she owned the cafe. Right? And I just started talking about, why, I noticed the coffee was like $5 like 2 weeks ago. Why is it $5.50? I just asked her, and she's like, things have gotten expensive. Yeah. And she also mentioned that she's actually starting to buy frozen food because it's much more cheaper than a lot of the fresh
food.
organic, healthier foods.
Yeah.
And that's what she's feeding her kids. 4 kids. They just need to fill their stomachs. And she's like, I got to fill their stomachs. A lot of Australians are buying frozen food. It's probably not healthy. It's processed and stuff. But they are resorting to those alternatives because of the rising cost of organic foods.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
And I agree to her point, because I saw this reel on Instagram or somewhere on TikTok. I saw it that cafe owner. This one guy was talking to a cafe owner, and they're like, the only money they make off coffee. Like, I know coffee prices increased, but the only money they make is 50 cents.
Yeah.
The rest all goes in operation because labor cost is increased,
Yeah.
utility cost is
Of course.
increased, rent is increased. So they're like making 50 cents, and if they don't increase that coffee from $5 to $5.50. They have nothing in their pocket, and then they have to resort to like buying frozen food. Even with the 50 cents, how many coffees are you going to sell? What is your profit margin going to be? And if you invest back into the business, it's like doing a business is so difficult.
It's so difficult.
Yeah.
Even when I was like, we had a stall, and there was a halal festival in Adelaide, like a big festival. Some of the boys will make a stall, call it liquid crude. We realized, oh my God, if we price the chai at a reasonable price, we're making no margins.
Yeah.
We're making like 20 cents a chai.
Yeah.
And we thought, okay, we are forced to make an unreasonable price. And I felt really bad, but we're like, we have to mark it up. We
Yeah.
have to mark it up. Otherwise, we're just going to do a stall for the sake of making back our money.
Yeah.
And it's not worth it.
It's not worth it. So we were forced to mark it up. And you realize when you're on the other side as well, as consumers, when you go as a business owner, they're fighting. They're fighting as well. They're fighting to feed their kids, to pay their bills, to pay their rent, and that's part of the game. Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
100%. Next thing, let's talk about, because this is an endless topic, and we will continue. But also, let's talk about transport. Like, I don't know about Adelaide, and I don't know about Queensland, but at least Melbourne, the Myki, it has increased. Like before.
Same, yeah.
Like right now, it's $10 a day,
Same.
like to go and to come back, which is really expensive.
Yes.
And so many people don't tap their cards. And I am confessing, I don't tap my card. Like I have my card. I do have something.
As well,
Yeah. But I don't want to tap it. It is really expensive. And the stupidest thing that they do when I was a student at least, and it's yet the case, just one stop before University of Melbourne, because I went here, that is not a free tram zone. And just one stop before is a free tram zone. So, all the officers, Myki officers standing at University of Melbourne to catch students. I'm like, dude, students don't have the money.
Yeah.
That is really sad. And it was, I think before it was like $3.50 or $4. Right now it's increased $5.5, and it is just so bad. Another thing that I was telling you guys before, and I do want to put it out as well. Another person, it's a trick that he uses, and he saved thousands of dollars like yearly. The digital Myki, he had it, topped it up the minute he went negative. He bought another card, another Myki, because you're not like credible for the Myki that's gone and that's lost. And I don't blame him or her, whoever did this
It's a
tactic.
free Myki card. You get a free digital one.
Yeah, you get a free digital Myki card. Yeah.
That's actually
I actually haven't done that, so I need to get myself on that.
Yeah, she's not going to go in negative. She's going to pay her dues.
I'm a lawyer. I'm not going to go.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, but I don't, like, it's wrong.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's, like, I don't know what I say. Like, it's not ethical, but I don't know if it's wrong. I'd say it that way. Yeah. What are your thoughts about transport and like public transport? What's my what is there
Adelaide.
public transport in Adelaide? Sorry.
No, we just drive. We walk and we take cycles. No, there's definitely public transport there, and you know what's so funny? It's the exact same as Melbourne in terms of $10. And when I came to Adelaide initially, in 2023, for the first 4 to 5 months, I was like, let me save up for a car, so let me catch public transport. Number one, it's really bad in Adelaide. Number two, I realized that I just took it back and I was like, why is $60 gone? And I was paying like $10 back and forth. It was $4.95 one trip.
Yeah.
In Adelaide, it's regardless of where you go. If you go from here, one stop to this stop, it's still $4.95. If you go from here to 2 hours away, it's still $4.95. So that's increased a lot. I think that's my opinion, man. Just make it free, man. You're taking so much tax from us, man. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Obviously with fuel prices as well. So I just found that in Adelaide in particular, like I realized that it was cheaper for me to buy a car, pump petrol, drive, pay for parking as well, and I'd still probably get less than $10 over the span of 3 months, and in Adelaide, as usual, the public transport is not bad, but I think you can speak to Melbourne much better. I mean, like,
Yeah.
You've lived all your life in Melbourne.
I have, yeah. So I have, again, seen it go from like even pre-Myki when we had paper. Yeah, there was a pre-Myki. So we had paper, like, it was much cheaper, probably like $2 or something like that, like per trip.
crazy.
And yeah, like you said, it's now about $10 to get from one way and back.
Yeah.
So I think for me, I actually have made a decision to work closer to home. So as I said before, like it only takes me about 10 minutes to drive to work. And so I don't really use public transport as much as I used to.
Yeah.
But on that tip on like, the free tram zone and things, I've definitely done it in the past where I just get off the stop before and just walk the rest of the way. Because then I'm just like, why am I paying extra?
Yeah.
Or like another thing that I was used to do was I'd just go early and then I'll just walk the rest of the way. So then I don't have to pay like for, this extra bit of the transport.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think it's a hard one. Like I can appreciate what you said about the person who, was just trying to find a way to hack the
Not
system.
my friend. I don't know that person. Just like, I have no idea. Just saw this reel on Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have a digital Myki. It's not me at all.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just one of those things where you're just like, well, that probably affects where people live, right? Than about the transport. So then, probably if you're living in the city, if you're doing stuff in the city, then just walk wherever you can. So, I think in Sydney, from when we were there recently, like they don't have a card. You just tap your credit card, which is so much. It is more,
It's better.
much better.
Convenient,
Much more convenient, and I think it is cheaper in Sydney too.
I feel I don't remember because I haven't bought a Myki. I have a Myki, but I haven't bought a new one since years. You have to even pay like a $6 fee to buy the card.
Buy the card.
Yeah, you need
I'm
to.
like, what the hell? Why do I have to pay that? It's so bad. Yeah.
I think it's credited though. Is it credited?
I
Or
don't,
not?
I don't
I don't
remember
remember
In Queensland, it wasn't. The Go
Okay.
card was like $5. You paid every time you buy one. It wasn't
Yeah.
credited.
Okay.
I don't think it is credit. It's the money for the
the
card.
money,
I'm
okay.
not sure, but I think so. That is the scenario.
Mm.
And that's like, why?
Yeah. You know what's so funny? I'll just relate a small story in relation to this whole bus card thing. So I was a student, like it was 2019. I was going for work. I was working at a little bar restaurant, and I was just going in the morning. I was pretty late. I don't remember if I topped off my Go card or not. I topped it. I always try to pay, but then that day I tapped on, and I was late to work, and I was like, I really can't miss the shift because I'm a student. Tapped it on. I didn't have the funds, and the bus driver was like, yeah, just come on. I went on the bus, and we're going, and these inspectors come on.
Oh, shit.
And they come on and they ask me, they're like, can you tap your Go card here? And I was like, okay, here we go. I tapped it on insufficient funds.
Yeah.
And I was a student, right? And
Yeah.
I was like, he told me, okay, next stop, we got to get off. I said, yeah, fine. The lucky thing was next stop was the city, which my work was like a 2-minute walk from. So I was very lucky, fortunate that when I was late. And we got off the bus and I told the inspectors, look, man, I have been working 3-4 shifts. I don't remember if I tapped my Go card or not. I don't remember whether I've charged it or not. I'm very sorry. And kept going on and on about how you should be responsible to tap on your Go card. And okay, lawfully that makes sense. But ethically, I told him, like, realistically, okay, you're going to give this to me because of $3. Like, really, I told him, what do you want to do? I asked him, what should we do now? Do you want to pay the fine? Like, really? And he said, no, I'll give you a warning and let you go. And I feel like sometimes there could be a bit of leeway here, for students, a bit of leeway just to kind of like, there's a lot of pressures, you got to work, you got to get your finances and all that. Obviously, you can automatically top up your card. But in terms of transport, specifically, like, maybe not be that stringent is my point of view. And,
there should be student discounts.
Yeah,
there should be.
I think
It's for a particular age group, I think. So for like high school or things like that. I don't know if for undergrad it is, but for masters there isn't. I'm not sure if undergrad has it.
They stopped it in Queensland. They stopped it for all university students, only high school. After a while, yeah. They used to have it for the uni graduates. They're no longer there anymore.
But they're also students.
I know.
Yeah, they're not working full time.
The government wants to make money. Probably, I think that's the logic out of it.
And I think the inspectors thing is such a weird thing to have I understand people jump on without tapping, but it should be circumstantial, and they should be like if he's a repeated offender for like years and months, then it makes sense. But if a guy kind of forgets here and there with the pressures of life, no one's going to think, and
but the point is, you are the person who did. Now, tomorrow, if I am there who's not doing it, I'm not saying I don't do it, but for example, I don't do it for years. But I give the same excuse as you.
That's fair.
So if she's the inspector, how is she supposed to know who is the right person between you and me?
That makes sense.
We can give both of us can give the same story.
That's very true as well. But however, they can also see like the history of tapping, right? So
yeah, true. They can. They can.
Like your money is deducted. So he could see that. He saw that, you paid this much and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think definitely, like, if you are caught in that kind of scenario, like,
which makes sense. It was not my fault.
Yeah,
fault.
Yeah, but still try to explain. I feel like there are people who are compassionate. Depends who you get, right?
True. From like transport, what about socializing? Like, I feel socializing has gotten so much more expensive. For example, eating out is so expensive. Like now, everything is, as you said earlier as well, $20 at minimum. Like you go out to a restaurant to eat or to a cafe, you have to pay $20. I'm like looking at the menu, like what is under $10? Like at a cafe in the morning, if you want to grab like even croissants have become so expensive. I'm like, what the hell? Like $13 for a ham and cheese. I'd rather like make something really nice for myself, it has become really
Yeah,
expensive.
so true.
Yeah, what have you all experienced a similar thing?
Yeah, oh, for sure. Like, I definitely have had to cut down on eating out. That was like a really lovely pastime, like for yeah, brunch, of course. Like that's such a thing in Melbourne. I'm not sure in Adelaide.
No.
but
do you think Adelaide is that backward? I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
We're also part of Australia, right?
I know you are. But yeah, I used to go out, obviously, to eat quite often, and I think particularly because we're all from like an Asian background, like you just socialize around food, right?
Yeah,
it's just such a thing,
100%.
like with friends.
Bonds you.
100%. And
100%.
so, like, I think that's the thing that we just used to do all the time. And now, like you said, like going into a restaurant, you're not looking from left. You're looking at the right. You're looking at the price first. And so I think that's why, we, like my husband and I, like we had to actually, just make a decision to actually reduce the amount of times we're going out. And it's like, because going out used to just be like a thing that you just do. Now it's like a special occasion or something that it's like there's a reason why you're doing it, because you are catching up maybe with someone, as opposed to just, going out and just getting your own thing. So I think it has definitely increased. I think, like we've already said before, it's because like restaurants are having to like, foot the bill for so many other costs of logistics, of the price of ingredients, all those things. So it's, again, makes sense that it is going up. It's just the challenge of like, well, I think we've just got to change our habits almost a little bit. It's painful because that's something we're so used to and we're so comfortable about.
True.
But
this recently happened with me and my partner is, we go out now and we think about price and all these things and we eat something. And, when I was younger, my parents used to always say, my mom used to always say this, oh, I can make this better at home. Now I have become that person. I'm eating something like, oh, I could have made this better at home and cheaper. And then now I've realized that and I'm like, shit, I'm becoming my mom.
They were onto something.
They were right, which I never realized.
100%.
What about you?
Yeah, no, I've definitely felt it as well. I mean, everyone has pretty much felt it. Like, definitely going and eating out has been. Sometimes, I look at my bank and I'm like, where did $90 go today? And I'm oh, I just ate out twice today. When I was a uni student, I remember I used to eat out a lot, and I was working part time, and I was still okay. I was still alright back in 2015. It was alright. It was manageable. I'd have a meal. And because, I used to live in a homestay. The only time, you go and meet your friends is when you go out and eat. What are you going to do when you go out? You're not going to walk. You get hungry. You're going to eat. And I feel like this, with a lot of the, jobs that are demanding a lot of work, a lot of people don't have time to cook. And that's where a lot of these other brands like, Hello Fresh and all these other brands start coming in. And
those are expensive. Only the first box is this, again, a marketing trick. The first box is, you're like calculate, oh my God, this meal is so cheap, calculated over 2 people or 3 people or 4 people, whatever. And then when you get the full price of it, you're like, damn, this, I'd rather just buy it myself.
Buy it yourself, exactly. And like a lot of the parents and a lot of the, families are starting to meal prep like a lot. And like, I'm like, that is a lot of work. It is a lot of work to meal prep. I do it myself. Like, I like to play soccer. I like to go to the gym and all that. Preparing food is a task, and with my friends at house, I think what international students can do, and like what I was speaking to my friend yesterday as well, one of the nice alternatives, if you find a good bunch of friends that you're living with, you guys can cook together and have that little environment. You can have the same atmosphere. Whereas, if
when you're students, it's the fun of eating outside. It's obviously being more like practical and, to manage your finances. But when you're a student, I'm so sure all of us have been students. It's like, going out is a different.
It's a fun.
100%.
It's a fun activity. You tell, like me, if I was a student, you tell me, oh, let's come home and cook. Unless it's like you're cooking like a cake, you're baking a cake or something fancy. That's a whole different scenario. But like normal food, just come home. I'll be like, oh, okay, I'll make another plan. Probably Amy and I would just go outside and we leave you. Like, hey guys, we're sick.
I'm a massive foodie as well. I'm so lucky that I'm not a student now. Because now I like work full time and I'm like, oh my God, man. Like, I don't know how a lot of these people are affording stuff.
Oh, yes. I have that as well. Like, I'm seeing, like, people who are much younger than me sometimes going to these really fancy restaurants. And I'm like, oh, how are you affording this? Like, I just don't know where unless it's, like, parents' money or something like that.
It's so funny. Like, I mean, obviously, like, from a rational perspective, then the goal is, okay, you got to find other ways to make more money, start a business. Now, that is a different kind of conversation altogether.
Yeah.
Like we're just talking about the prices itself, and like I completely agree with you. Like as a student, you want to go out, you want to eat, and nowadays, like you see a lot of students kind of like, I don't call my friends, and like I'm like, do you want to go? They're like, nah, man, I probably can't. I just made a meal. I'm like, no, just go out.
Even a lot of students are busy working.
Yeah.
They're just busy working. They're like, oh, I got a shift, I'm going to take it.
Yeah.
They don't socialize as much.
And Sarah, that takes a big toll on the mental health because it takes a huge toll on mental health because young people are very social as compared to older people. They're extremely social and they need that social validation and energy. And if you're spending all your time working, studying and all of that, you're just going to be in a very, very sad place, like for majority, and it's going to be very difficult for you. And then they resort to bad habits like, smoking, drinking to cope up with that. And that costs a lot as well. So
yeah, but then sometimes you rationalize those bad habits,
100%, yeah, like,
they're like, I'm really stressed. Let's have a cigarette or whatever.
Or whatever they're having. And you see, it's like a domino effect into everything. Like, because of this happens, this happens, and then you end up having mental stress because of this. So I'm obviously you got a budget but there's only so much you can budget as well as a student.
You don't know how to budget as a student as such.
Yeah,
like you're just learning the budgeting parts of it is what I'd say.
You're more in a YOLO kind of mind.
Yeah.
Let's go on a trip. Let's go on a trip. Because $500, I have $400 in my account. Let's still go.
Put it on the card.
I used to do that. I'll learn tomorrow. Let's figure it out. That kind of mindset. But now to be in that kind of mindset, it could actually make you pretty broke if you're a student. It could,
true. You could. Also, entertainment, like, doing any entertainment
100%.
activities, like watching a movie or doing anything else. I think it is really expensive.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
100%. Like, I think, similar thing, like you said, movies, like that was something that I really enjoyed doing quite regularly, but now it's just like,
that's so true.
It's going to come on Netflix and Amazon and
the amount of times I've heard that sentence in the last 3 months, I'd be a millionaire if I get $1 every time.
Yeah. I think, because you're just like, well,
so funny.
it's eventually going to get there, right?
Yeah.
So then I can just wait a little bit longer. I guess there was a time as well that we did not have any subscriptions to Netflix, Disney, but we had someone else's password. But now they've cracked down on that, obviously.
Yeah.
So like little things that you're like, okay, I've got to find a way to entertain.
Yeah.
I think one thing that's might be good for students as well, I don't know how often this is still, but there's a lot of like board game, like cafes and stuff. That can be a cheaper alternative, like from an entertainment perspective, if you're
100%.
open to doing something like that, and just forming some kind of like group activities.
Yeah.
Like particularly in Melbourne, there's actually a lot of free stuff too.
Yes, Melbourne has even for adults and things like that. There are a lot of free things as well. Like I feel. What am I thinking?
Like board games and stuff, or like activities?
Or just like festivals or like different events.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so except of this, I do another thing called Vishkit Community, where we organize events or things to have people make friends. So we do few free ones as well, and we do see people coming. I'm so sure like us, there are a few other activities, and we do different things.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about socializing?
No, I completely agree with your statement because the amount of times I've gone with my friends and be like, this is movie, it's amazing, let's go. They'll be like, oh, we just went to a movie yesterday. I'm like, no, let's go again. They're like, bro, it's going to come on Netflix. And I'm like, no, not again.
Yeah.
And that is obviously kind of like, feels like, I mean, like, back in the day, like, you kind of miss those times of going to a cinema. I remember you going to watch, you might know Shah Rukh Khan and all of that.
Yeah.
I remember all the movies I watched of Shah Rukh Khan. He's a very famous Indian actor.
Okay.
He's a huge superstar.
Superstar.
Ooh, okay.
We used to go with the parents and watch it in the cinema. The rides used to be crazy, but now you can't. It's really high ticket. The ticket prices are really high. About board games, I'm a big fan of board games. Although I may not look like a big fan, but I'm absolutely a big fan. I love the Fortress in Melbourne. Like it's like very cheap. It's like some $10 and you can play a game the whole day with your friends. Pick any game and play. Those are amazing alternatives. Like even if you want to go on, another thing that we do is go on trips, like drive. I mean, fuel is a cost obviously, but drive out and hike. Maybe that's a good alternative. Even like if you like a lot of students, if they're going to bars and restaurants, they're gonna splurge. I mean, they're gonna run. If you go to a cinema, they're gonna splurge. So I completely agree with that. Like entertainment has become very expensive. Like,
Yep.
and if you're watching Netflix by yourself at home, it's not the same vibe as going out and watching a movie with your friends. So it's,
True, agreed. I know. You know, any topic that we talk about at this point in time, everything is increased in price is what I'd say. Are there any life adjustments that you guys have done or any saving tips that you guys have? It's not specifically for students, it's for adults as well, because I think adults are facing it more. Students, as you said, is YOLO, but as adults, you face it so much more. You have so many added responsibilities. You want to have a family, you want to invest, you want to do 10 million things, but you're so, you can't do it, and it affects mental health again. So what are some things that you guys are using or any tips that you guys have?
Yeah, sure. So there was a survey done with a lot of Australians, like, and I had a look at that, and there were different, very funny answers as to how do you save and deal with the cost. Some of them were like, you try to save as much as you can, but you don't worry about it too much. You try to just save a bit, but then enjoy as well. So there's a lot of kind of answers out there. For me personally, I can speak to myself. I think you definitely, for me personally, eating inside would really help. Like, it saves heaps. Because you can make the same food and it costs you probably $2-3, whereas it's a no-brainer. Eating inside is definitely really helpful. Cook in bulks and eat inside. Another thing that I found that's really helpful is that if you're young and you have a lot of time in your hands, and this is probably for more like entrepreneurial mindset people, is try to sell something. Like, try to get into that side hustle business. Try to think of something like, if you have a few $100, try to find ways to make more money as well. You really can't, sometimes you can only fight so much with saving. Like, you can try to save, you can try to budget, you can try to make sure you buy discount clothes, and you can do all that, but it is going to keep increasing, and you want to make sure that you find alternate ways to make money. So that is one thing you can do. Maybe buy a car, rent it out, or I don't know, find something that, help a friend out with this business. That's another thing you can do. What I also recommend is try to, if you're making a purchase in terms of clothes as well, obviously young people love clothes. Make sure it's very essential for you. It's not something that you're just buying out of the whim, like, or you just get carried away, because it's easy to get carried away once you go into small. You buy one thing, you buy another, Oh, I think I need this also. And the next thing you know, spend $300.
It's like going to Kmart.
Exactly.
Everything.
You're like $2. Oh wow, $2 for this, and then you buy it, and you're like, shit, I came to buy one thing, and the bill is like $100.
100%. And sometimes having that discipline is to think that, okay, maybe I really don't need this, and it's okay if I don't get this when I go home, because it's extremely tempting. I feel so bad. I look at this awesome jacket, and I'm like, man, I really want this jacket, but I already bought 2-3 things, and I'm like, should I really get this? And I'm like, no, I don't need this. I have some jackets. So. And statistics also say that, people who buy clothes use them for like 2-3 months and throw them away. So it's anyway going to be a waste at some point. So just make sure you spend very strategically. I'm not saying be stingy and not buy good clothes and don't look good. Look good, buy good clothes, but make sure they're absolutely essential. And also another thing that I really think is, if you're living together with people and with family, try to do things together, because then things become cheaper. If you try to do things yourself, it's going to be much more expensive, and that obviously you've got to find people you trust. I think that is my opinion. I'm not a financial expert or anything. I'm also trying to figure out life as I go. So this is what I've done, I think. You can probably
What
highlight
about you,
more.
Amy?
I agree with a lot of what you said. I think one thing I've found really helpful is actually tracking the spending. It might sound like really...
How do you track your spending?
So I've done it in various ways. One has been like when I bought something, then particularly I was like using cash and stuff. So I just have a little notebook. It sounds very old school, but like just writing it down, and then like the amount, and then having no judgment on yourself as well. Because I think that's the other thing, because like we judge ourselves so much around like, oh, I shouldn't be spending it. Just take a week out of your day, of your calendar, just track it and be like, okay, where are the gaps? Where am I spending more of my money than I probably should be? Like if I'm going out twice or 3 times. So, and then, assess it based on, what your current budget is. What are you actually bringing in? And I agree so much about like actually think about not just feeling restricted based on your current income, but how can you actually increase your income circle through, selling something or starting a business, getting around people who have a different mindset around that. Like huge, even though like I am an employee, but I do have an entrepreneurial stint as well of wanting to actually like create something more, having a little bit more control. So I think hopefully this can be communicated to people who are listening, is that you actually have more control than you think.
Yeah.
True.
You can be empowered to actually not just blame, complain, or defend.
Yes,
you know?
that's a very
like-
important thing. I just
Yeah.
wanted to just start on. That is a very
Yeah,
important thing. If you go into that mindset, complaining, you're not going to find solutions. So make sure you look at solutions. Sorry,
Yeah,
cut
yeah.
you
No.
off. Yeah.
It's definitely how I started to see, the world just through a different lens of like, rather than the problem, what's the possibility that we could actually turn this like challenge into a real victory story, I guess.
Yeah.
So I think tracking helps, budgeting, and then I think one thing, I think a mentality that I try to take in as well is like delay is not denial.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
So just
people
because
are like,
you're
it's too late.
it's too late,
Yeah.
or
Yep.
even if I must go on that trip,
Yeah.
but well, maybe you'd like to go on that trip, but maybe it's not right now in this
I
moment.
completely agree with you.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
Such a
with you.
great point.
Yeah.
So true. So true.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, because there's so much on social media now.
Yeah.
We get so much FOMO. My
agreed.
friend's in Japan, my cousin's in Japan right now. I was just went to Japan, everyone's in Japan. And so
Everyone's in Bali or Japan. Everyone's traveling.
Yes. And you're like, then you can feel, that mental health thing, like kind of, you just feel really sad about yourself.
Yeah.
You're like, oh no, well, actually, I'm going to actually do something about it. And actually like, okay, well, how could I actually save towards Japan? And then I don't actually have to feel stressed about it
100%.
when I'm there, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's a really good point, hopefully, that people can take away. But I think also one thing, we were talking about clothes. So I actually went to a clothes swap on the weekend.
Yeah, right.
So this actually is not my dress. This is one of my friend's dress.
Wow.
Oh, really
And
nice.
so it was just like a whole bunch of people came together, brought all the clothes that they don't want to wear, because people only wear things once or twice. Just put it all in the racks, and then you just swap your clothes.
And you do that.
Yeah, and
I have
because
so many clothes that I don't wear.
Exactly.
There are 4 clothes that I wear. The others I don't wear, and I have a cupboard full.
yeah, and then it can just become such a happy thing for you to see someone else, wear something that's yours, and then so I got like 5 pieces of clothing for free. Because like I just swapped it around, and so it's just a real, like you said, just do something with someone else.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's like so many like clothes swaps around.
Melbourne
as well.
I didn't know about that, but I might try that out.
Yeah.
You should create one for Adelaide. I'm serious. You should.
I should.
Yeah.
That would be a great way to like get
I
community
have so
together.
many clothes that I don't use.
Yeah.
I like my friends as well. We can do one. Yeah, no, that's so true actually.
Yeah.
Just sorry, no, if you're going.
Okay, just one more thing, and I think this is just kind of goes to what you were saying too.
No.
It's like so a little acronym that I got from one of the people who mentors me is like PIE. So have more PIE in your life, which stands for Power, Input, Environment.
Okay, nice.
So that just means like get around people who think outside the box, because if you stay within that circle of influence where it's just like, everything's bad, everything's expensive, having lots of negativity, then you're actually not going to progress.
Yeah.
But if you can get around people, who are like, well, maybe I could sell this, or maybe I could Uber or something like that, as in like actually drive. As opposed to taking it.
No. Like be an Uber driver or do Uber this
Something
out there just to get yourself out of that, victim mentality. I think that is also a huge way. And there's so much, again, like so many meetup groups around Melbourne. I'm sure in Adelaide as well. It's just like people who are just like, I want more out of life.
Yeah.
And just get around people like that.
Yeah, true.
I just wanted to add to a couple of like absolute gold mines she said as well.
Yeah.
Like in terms of like going out to trips, like there was a beautiful quote by Chris Williamson, and he's a very famous podcast. He said that if you don't want to go, you don't have to go.
Yeah.
You don't have to really go. You don't have to go for that drinks night. You don't have to go for that trip. And recently, it took me a while to actually sink in my head. And the last few months is when I realized my friends are going on a trip, and I was like, I probably don't need to go for it. And I didn't. But then I looked at Instagram and I was like, I had such a good time. I wish I was there. They took my group photo and all that. I was like, felt really bad for like an hour. Then I felt good. But then, and also like in terms of like the complaining mentality, which I really want to add, like there are so many stories of amazing people who have started from nothing and who have built like huge businesses. Like from literally some of the passion. Like there's a girl called Huda Katan. You heard of Huda Katan? No. She really liked eyelashes because she had really bad eyelashes. That's what she said. And so she started making these eyelashes.
Huda Beauty, are you talking about that?
Yeah.
Oh yes, obviously everyone knows Huda Beauty. I don't know her full name.
Okay.
Yeah, obviously.
She started making that, and now it's valued at $1 billion. Like it's like she started thinking of solutions. So I think like especially if you're young, one thing you really have is human capital. You have energy. You may not have money, but you have energy and time. So use it. Like try not to like kind of like be in that complaining mentality a lot. Like, don't try to waste time trying to be numb from all this. Feel it.
There are solutions for everything. You just need to think of the solutions instead of complaining.
100%. Think of solutions. And my thing is, go and act. Just try something. Don't just sit and think and talk about it. Like, go out and do it. Like, if you think of some idea, okay, give it a shot. And you're young, you don't have kids. If you do have kids, then probably be careful. But if you don't, then you just, by yourself, you can just fall on back and get a job. So it's okay. Like, go and act. And when you act on your solutions, you'll actually start figuring out, okay, this doesn't work, this doesn't work. And it'll remove you from that victim mentality, which is really a black hole. I think that you mentioned a really good point there. So I just wanted to add on to that.
That was amazing, guys. Like, I really, really, really insightful. So before we end, we do a rapid fire round. The winner of the rapid fire round gets an anchor cookie ko
I didn't know we were gonna
get it right. Now she's competitive. She's like, let's do it.
It's all fun. So just gonna say, so I'm gonna ask you first the question, and then you answer it after. Then I'm gonna ask you, then you answer it after. Vice versa. Not many questions. Very simple.
Done.
And fun. Okay.
Done.
And so how do we win?
I choose the winner. It needs to be dramatic. And, all of those things. Give me some drama.
Give us the spices.
Give me some spice. Then you win the box.
Okay,
perfect. Let's start with you.
Yes,
and it's quick. All quick. Okay.
Done.
Tea or coffee?
Chai, coffee, any day.
You said chai, coffee. What are you?
Chai, tea. Sorry, chai, tea.
Tea. You?
Sorry.
Tea or coffee?
Dirty chai.
Dirty chai. Okay.
It was just coffee and chai.
Whoa! What's that?
Yeah, try it. Order at a cafe. I don't know if it's a Melbourne thing, yes.
No,
okay, interesting. Okay, for 24 hours, if you could make something for $1, what would it be?
Whoa. Okay. Food.
Good one.
That's a category.
Yep.
For $1?
Yeah, for 24 hours, what would it be?
Faluda.
That is food. That's an Indian dessert.
This is really good. I would make that.
Yeah, it's an Indian dessert.
I haven't tried that.
Yeah.
All right.
What is your dopamine menu?
Okay. Soccer, workout, hiking, traveling, and amazing conversations.
Okay, nice. What about you?
Good. Okay.
What's
I actually went to a very negative place, which is social media. But going for walks, I think it's great. Yeah, great conversations with people, reading something inspiring, and I think just spending time with loved ones.
Yeah. Money or fame?
Oh, fame.
Money or fame?
Money.
Yeah. What is the most underrated thing about Australia?
The most underrated thing about Australia is the lifestyle that you can live if you actually work really hard. It's really underrated and a lot of people don't actually know about that. I think you'll be fine here. Yeah. There's a lot of support here. Yeah.
What about you? What do you think?
Underrated thing about Australia. I don't know if it's underrated, but I just love the scenery. I think, you can go pretty much anywhere in Australia and there'll be something amazing to look at and just admire.
What is the most overrated thing about Australia?
Overrated thing. I should have known this was coming. Overrated. I think. I was going to say the coffee, but I think the coffee is actually pretty good.
It is pretty good.
And a pass. I'm gonna lose.
I think this. You're gonna.
We'll give you a chance to let him speak.
Yeah. I think the spiders and all these snakes and all that. I've never seen a spider so far or a snake. So
I have.
Like, it's so dangerous and all that. But I don't know if it's a very, very particular parts of Australia. I think. That's very
probably. I agree to that. What about? Do you have anything, or you just want to pass this?
I think I'm just gonna pass.
Okay. Biggest mistake you made when it comes to money?
Oh,
It needs to be short and crisp and fast.
this one I spent on a professional ear course that I shouldn't have spent on, and it was 15K, and I regret it right now.
Oh shit! What about you?
We're very similar. Mine was probably closer to 10,000.
Oh,
And
okay.
yes, it was not the right thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
What is one small brand that you think should be viral? It needs to be a small brand.
Oh, okay. Small brand that should be viral. Don't know if you guys heard of Pleasant State before.
No.
So basically, it's like a non-plastic type of cleaning product that you can
Okay.
get. So they have like glass containers, but then they have these little tablets that they put in, and so it's very environmentally friendly. Australian brand as well.
Nice.
And yeah, and so they've done quite well, I think, but not quite well known. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
What about
For
you?
me, hands down, it's a brand. It's called Tiruna. It's a Sri Lankan food place. I go there every week and eat. I think this restaurant should be viral. And I even told them I can be your social media manager for free. And I can make
nice.
content because they're so good, but not many people know about it. I think
Okay.
it's like authentic Sri Lankan food.
Okay.
Yes.
In Adelaide.
Yes.
Okay.
Probably that's why no one even know about it. Thank you.
Okay. This is a little tricky now to think who won. I'd say Shimark, it's you. This hammer goes to you.
Yes. Very good.
Yeah.
I felt like I passed, so I couldn't think of
No, it's fine. But you were being
take it if you want.
no, it's fine.
No.
But anyway, thank you, Amy and Shimark, for being here. It was
Thank you
totally
so much.
candid and it was totally unfiltered.
But thank you so much for having us.